Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. It's me, Tremaine, back again with another weekly market forecast for you guys. And in today's analysis session, we're going to be getting into the DXY, Aussie CAD, Aussie Swiss franc, Swiss yen, New Zealand dollar CAD, and USD ZAR. Now, to kick things off, guys, we're going to get straight into the DXY. We're going to keep onto the 4 hour just so that we keep our analysis very relevant and recent. And what we can see here from a 4 hourly perspective, guys, is that if we just look at the extreme swing highs and swing lows that we have on our chart, and we do say that if we do zoom out to the point where we can't see the individual candlesticks on our chart, what we are most likely looking at is some daily structure. And once we zoom into the chart to the point that we can see our individual candlesticks while we're on our 4 hour, only then are we looking at our actual recent 4 hour swings. So looking at things like this on the DXY, guys, we're looking at our higher time frame swing highs. What we can identify is this resistance area up here that we see prices breaking above and breaking back below. If we pay attention to the nature of the structure that approached this resistance area, what we can conclude is that we've had this ascending structure. Now, this ascending structure has not given us that third touch, guys, but we have seen our range expanding above these equal highs here. Let's just move our chart down a bit. So we have seen our range expanding above these equal highs. Sorry, my mistake. Above these equal highs over here, we have seen our range expanding to the upside. We've seen our range breaking back below our previous higher structures within this expanding structure. So clearly we're seeing the nature of this expanding structure beginning to make that move to the downside. If we pay attention to just this most recent price action and just pay attention to our structure, what we will see, guys, is that our market, or rather we've been in a market that has established a high, come down, created a low, created an equal high, established some support, violated the previous resistance areas, creating a new high, broken below structure, broken and closed below structure, establishing a new swing low. We've then seen a lower high, and we've now seen prices giving us a lower low. So yes, prices are still bullish from a 4 hour perspective as long as we remain above this resistance area over here, this previous support structures over here. But in our most recent H1 perspective, guys, we can see that we've started a nice, beautiful downtrend. So we've established a low, we've broken the previous lower structures, giving us a new lower low. So now that we've started this downtrend, guys, on a smaller time frame within our nice expanding structure, we're going to be looking for those downside continuations, guys, because we've seen prices breaking and closing back below our previous resistance areas and then giving us nice momentum away from that region. So if we see, guys, prices doing some sort of, or rather starting some sort of a corrective structure into these previous resistance areas, we're going to be looking to capitalize on any on any short-term downside that we might see happening from the dollar index. Now, areas of structure, guys, that we're looking to target are obviously our extreme lower structures. So these support regions down there. But we will also be looking to see how do prices, if prices do actually make this move to the downside, how do prices react when we approach this support trend line. So we're looking to trade any downside that might come as a result of this expanding structure, and that we also see based off this manipulation to the upside, violating our previous resistance areas, our higher time frame resistance areas that we've identified on our left hand side, those daily swing highs. We're expecting a reaction from this area. So we're expecting, since we're expecting that higher time, or that rather that lower time frame reaction from a higher time frame resistance area, on these lower time frames we should start to see a small downtrend. And rather on a higher time frame, what we will see is maybe just a nice corrective structure that is obviously correcting before the next momentum to the upside. So I'm trying to draw this trend line over here. That is obviously correcting before we establish or come to higher time frame support before we maybe move to the upside. So in anticipation of some sort of a corrective structure, guys, we're going to be bearish at least until we establish or come to our important key support structures over there. So that's our quick run through, guys, on our dollar index. We're going to be bearish bias over the course of next week, hoping to see that dollar weakness follow through. Now that we've done with the DXY, guys, let's get into our currency pairs, and we're gonna start off with our beloved Aussie CAD. Now, guys, with Aussie CAD, what we can see, if we just look at our extreme structure, we can see prices sort of being in this descending structure. So we see prices correctively moving to the downside. What we've just done for ourselves is accommodate for our extreme highs, establish that resistance trend line, accommodate for our extreme lows, establish that support trend line there, get an idea that we are in some sort of a descending structure. Now, if we come over to our most recent price action, what we will see, if we do slap on a resistance trend line, just accommodating for our extreme highs, this extreme high over here, our intermediary highs over here, if we just slap on a nice resistance trend line, we can see that we've broken above some important structure. So also what we were looking at last week, and the reason for our bullish bias, was us seeing our previous support structures over there, prices approaching those structures nice and correctively. So we've also seen a nice corrective violation of our important lower structures over here. We've seen our structures violating these support structures, once correctively breaking back above, and a second time closing below and breaking back above. Then we've seen in our most recent price action, and a beautiful sign for us to begin to be looking for those bullish trading opportunities is a nice sign of strength. So we have our previous resistance areas over in this area here, previous resistance areas that are keeping this market as a downtrend from an H4 perspective, now being violated to the upside. So we have a new high being created within this market. All we are waiting for, guys, from Aussie CAD on an H4 perspective is a nice, beautiful corrective structure that brings us into some previous support structures where we can look for those bullish continuation trades off. So that's what we're looking for, guys, over the course of next week on Aussie CAD. We're gonna have a beautiful bullish bias, just waiting for a nice corrective structure to be able to get into this longing opportunity. If we look at structure right now, what we can see is that price is still in this impulsive phase, and because we don't jump onto the train while it's moving, we wait for it to stop at the next station. We need to wait for this market to give us this nice corrective structure for us to be able to jump into this buy. This corrective structure will also add confluence on this position. So, guys, patience is going to be needed on Aussie CAD, but when that patience decides to pay, if we're in the right direction with that momentum, guys, this looks like a beautiful bullish setup. Nonetheless, let's not waste any time. Let's get into some Aussie Swiss franc. What we can see here, guys, on Aussie CHF is a market that is in some sort of a downtrend. So we can see lows, highs, lower highs, lower lows, equal highs, and new lower lows. So what we're expecting is maybe this market is still in this downtrend and we see the momentum to the downside. Let's trade in the direction that we're seeing the momentum coming in. So what we've done is we've just tried to isolate some structure over here. We've isolated the structure on a H1, but we can still see this clearly on a H4. Some beautiful resistance areas up here. We've just accommodated for our two resistance areas, slapped on this resistance trend line, accommodated for our two support areas there, slapped on the support trend line, got an idea of this ascending structure that we're currently in. We understand that ascending structures normally break to the downside, so we're looking to trade any momentum that might follow through on this bearish momentum that has violated our previous support structures. Now, an area of interest that we're looking to take or looking for the sell to terminate is within this area where we've seen a nice reaction from the market from a 4-hour perspective. So we understood that if we drop down onto a lower time frame, fact that we see two green candlesticks within there on our H4, if we drop down to our H1 on a lower time frame, we would see a beautiful swing low and a swing high, obviously giving us some structure to work off when we are looking for that entry. So now that we've identified the structure, guys, we're gonna refine the structure just a little bit more, just so that we can be a little bit more refined with the area that we're looking at. And now we can see that we have an area of confluence. We have an area where both our resistance trend line meets our area of interest, or our area where we could see some potential sell sensitivity. So that's exactly what we're looking at for, guys. We're going to be looking to see prices get into this area. Once we're into this area, guys, we're going to be looking for this reversal structure for any potential downside on Aussie Swiss franc. So what we're doing is we're giving ourselves, guys, an opportunity. On Aussie CAD, we're looking for that bullish bias setup. On Aussie Swiss franc, we're looking for that bearish bias setup. So giving ourselves an opportunity to hedge any AUD strength or weakness. So whether AUD is if AUD is the major player over the course of next week and we see AUD strength, we will see those AUD pairs making that move to the upside, and we have some structure on AUDCAD that supports a bullish bias. So we'll still be able to capitalize on that AUD strength. If AUD over the course of next week is weak, then we will see all of these AUD pairs making that move to the downside. And on AUD Swiss franc, we do have a nice sell setup that aligns with that directional bias. So we're going to be hedging some AUD strength, guys, over the course of next week with these two pairs. With that being said, let's hop back onto the H4 and move on to the next pair that we're going to have a look at, and that's Swiss yen. So on Swiss yen, guys, we've accommodated for the new structure that we're seeing developing over here. And Swiss yen, guys, looks like it's going to require just a little bit of patience from us. So what we've concluded, guys, over our analysis is that, yes, we still want to be trading in the direction of the sell side momentum that we see breaking some structural areas over there. And because we want to be trading in this momentum, we've identified this expanding structure. And within this expanding structure, we've seen our support structures being violated to the downside. And because we're seeing some sell side momentum, we want to be trading previous support structures now functioning as resistance. Now that we've seen prices basically impulsing towards our support area, we've accommodated for that price action and now have begun to look at previous resistance areas for this market, guys, to just keep on correcting into our previous resistance areas, give us this reversal structure, and then we begin to look for those sell setups. So, guys, on Swiss yen, we're still sell biased on this pair, just waiting for a beautiful sell setup that can present itself. Hoping that as prices develop, guys, we do find some structure that we can isolate and begin to see something just a little bit more clear that gives us an opportunity to jump into this beautiful sell. So we're expecting prices to come up into our resistance areas, give us that reaction for this bearish momentum, trading in the direction of this nice sell side momentum that we've seen violating our support structures. So we still have a bearish bias on Swiss yen, guys. We just need to accommodate for the current way that price is developing. Now that we're showing some bullish momentum, we need to wait for the bears to show themselves, for price action to come into an area where we can see that bearish momentum start to kick in. So that's exactly what we're going to do, guys, on Swiss yen. Exercise some patience just so that price can pull up into a high value area. Now that we're done with Swiss yen, guys, we're going to go on to New Zealand dollar CAD. On the 4 hour, let's start off by zooming out to the max so that we can see what our daily swing structures look like. So, guys, on New Zealand dollar CAD, what we can see is that we've entered some sort of a corrective structure. From the time we've pushed to the downside, we created some structure in this area, and ever since we created these higher structures over here, prices have failed to break and close nicely above these resistance areas here. We've also established from these resistance areas these extreme lows. So we understand that New Zealand dollar CAD is trapped in a sideways moving range. Now, how we've been able to capitalize on movements within the sideways moving range is we identify momentum. And how we've been identifying momentum is by isolating structures within our ranging market. Now, we've isolated some structures and we've seen bulls coming in, nice bullish momentum. We've isolated more structures, we've seen nice bullish momentum. Now, we've isolated a most recent structure here on our 1 hour and we've seen some bullish moves. But guys, if we look at the nature of this structure ascending, we've seen that there is now a difference in this move to the upside. Previously, when we've seen bulls coming into this market, we've seen them coming in nice and impulsively. Now that we see the bulls in this market, we are seeing them coming in just a little bit correctively. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to treat this market like a range, like what it is, and we're going to be looking for those selling probabilities from the high of this range, guys, and buying probabilities from the low of this range. That is how we treat our ranging market. And because we're looking for selling probabilities from the high of this range, over the course of next week, guys, we're going to be looking at the structure development on New Zealand dollar CAD, waiting for that bearish bias structure. So we're going to be looking at paying attention to these extreme highs and to these sell sensitive areas over here, waiting for prices to give us a nice reversal structure. Only and when we do see this reversal structure is when we're going to be looking to take a sell setup. So we're going to be having a bearish bias on New Zealand dollar CAD because this market is stuck within a range. We are seeing a difference in the upside momentum, and because of that difference, we're going to be looking for selling probabilities from the high of this range. Now take a look at what we're doing, guys. If we just recap, on Aussie CAD, we're looking for that bullish bias setup. On New Zealand dollar CAD, we're looking for that bearish bias setup. So we're hedging our CAD strength in this case. So if there is some CAD weakness over the course of next week, then we'll see all of these CAD code pairs making that move to the upside. Australian dollar CAD, guys, is giving us that bullish biased setup, a setup where we'll be able to capitalize if we see any CAD weakness over the course of next week. However, if we see CAD being the major player in these pairs and we see some CAD strength over the course of next week, all of these CAD code pairs are going to be making that move to the downside. Now on New Zealand dollar CAD, we do see some relevant structure that allows us to have that sell biased setup. So we're allowing ourselves to hedge some CAD strength or weakness over the course of next week. Whether CAD gets strong or weak, we're gonna give ourselves an opportunity to still be able to capitalize on that strength or weakness. Now that we've run through that, guys, let's get into the final pair that we're going to be having a look at, and that is USDZAR. Now it's been a while since we've had a look at USDZAR. You've just been waiting for some nice development of price action on USDZAR, and we have something beautiful. Now on USDZAR, guys, what we can see is sort of think about our DXY analysis. Now let's look at these extreme highs over here. So we have some resistance. We can see prices starting to correct towards this resistance. We then see a push to the upside, violating our nice, important, most recent resistance areas, and as well as this resistance that we were approaching correctively. Then we see prices undoing that move and making a move back to the downside. So breaking back below our structure, and more importantly, closing back below our structure. So if we come into the most recent price action, what you guys will see is this expanding structure that we've isolated. So we've seen prices giving us a beautiful first touch, second touch, and a third touch of our nice structure, and then we've seen that bearish move to the downside. Now because we've broken back below these important resistance areas over here, what we will see is, if we do zoom into our price action, we see prices correctively breaking this structure and then with nice momentum pushing away from that previous area. So this area has now become an area of value to us, guys, and we're going to be looking to see if prices don't continue to move to the downside and we do instead get a nice pullback. We're going to be looking to see how do prices get into this previous resistance area over here that we see prices manipulating above and breaking back below. Once prices do correct into this area here, we will be looking for those sell biased setups. Guys, this looks like a nice, beautiful trade to me on USDZAR. And if we manage to see prices pulling into our area of value, giving us that beautiful corrective structure to be able to get into this position, we will have the potential to get into a beautiful sell position, guys, on USDZAR. Also looking to ride this trade maybe to some support structures, but obviously accommodating and paying attention to what prices do and how do prices actually react to the support structure over here if we do end up getting to that support trend line. So guys, bearish bias on USDZAR, looking for this continuation of structure to the downside, hoping to see that sell momentum kick in. Guys, we have reached the end of today's weekly market analysis. Hopefully you guys have received the value that has been intended for you guys in this YouTube video. If you guys have received the value, definitely do drop this video a like. Show us that we are spreading valuable content. If it's your first time on the channel, definitely do subscribe, because you don't want to miss future videos that you will enjoy and will receive just as much value, if not more, than you've received in this video. Otherwise, if you're a returner, thanks so much for watching until the end of the video, guys. This is Tremaine, your FX Chaser's mentor. Do appreciate you guys. I will see you guys in our future videos. Have a great week, guys. Cheers.